mic was on mute. Shout out to parabiology. I led with the video, and it was showing a guy from Houston who flew halfway around the world to find a beautiful young Pinay to get married. Now, it begs the question. This guy looks like he's about 6 feet tall, roughly 40. He's got a very attractive young Pinay, early 20s. They make a great couple. Begs the question, why did he have to fly halfway around the world to find a wife? Now, lots of people will argue that you don't have to fly halfway around the world to find a wife, but I don't think that's true. I think he had to make the journey that he made to find what he found. And that's part of the conversation we want to have tonight. Guys are traveling to the Philippines because they want wives and they're not finding them here. That's a conversation, because while a lot of people will talk about how they feel there are plenty of wives to choose from here, the fact remains that this passport bro movement, while it is small, it's growing. And it begs the question, why is there so much energy behind this idea of traveling halfway around the world to find a wife? And yes, you'll notice in the comments, parabiology's on it. He's got a perspective. You find a much better one if you do. You find a better wife in the Philippines than you will in the West. Now, here's the idea, because we're going to be talking about that. And I like the comment that you made. We'll peel back that onion. If you look at marriage and you look at all the statistics on it here, I mean, you can search Google, you can search ChatGPT, you can just look out your window at your community, and what do you see? Marriage is on the decline. Relationships are down. Sex is down. People are not pairing up as much. The interest in getting married is way, way down. Guys in the West are saying that they aren't finding what they're looking for when they're here. There's a lot that goes into that, but the basic idea is that what marriage used to represent doesn't really exist anymore. Once upon a time, marriage was what you did if you wanted to have sex with a woman, if you wanted to have kids with a woman, if you wanted to find a man for financial stability, for security, and let's not forget this whole idea of companionship. That's what marriage used to be. But if we look at what's going on in the world today, well, let's be very honest about where we are. If you want sex, it's laughable to think that you're going to get married to someone to get that. The order has completely flipped. Sex comes first, marriage comes second. And then let's layer onto that a bit. If you want kids, while sure, most kids are still being born out of, in married situations to couples who are in wedlock, those numbers are on the decline. Increasingly more kids are being born to unwed mothers. Not blaming the mother, not blaming the father, just calling it out. More and more children are being born to parents who aren't married. And when you start to factor in step parents, increasingly more kids are not being raised by their biological parents. You look at some of the stats out there, and you could argue that about half, maybe a little bit less than half of kids are actually being raised by their biological parents today. So this whole notion of marriage, which currently has a failure rate of about 50% if you just look at the divorces, really is starting not to make sense. No, this is just my prediction, just me. Argue it if you want to. But by the 22nd century, marriage is going to be a dead institution. Now, you might listen to this and think, I don't think it's going to take that long. And you know what? I think you've got a compelling argument there. As you look at why people want to get married, or why they wanted to get married, most of those reasons are gone. So you're going to have to look at a world where the goal is no longer to get married. The goal is to have sex. Maybe have that turn into something a little bit more meaningful. The situationship, the hookup. or the one night stands when I feel like it because that's all I'm really into. That's becoming the norm. And those numbers are going to keep growing as marriage declines because there's increasingly less of a reason to get married in the West. Here's the funny thing that you start to see. If I look at YouTube, if I look pretty much at any sort of media, there's something that I will find and something that I won't find. I can find tons of videos of smart, successful, high performing women who are older being late 30s, early 40s, and they're crying about how they can't find a man despite the fact that their biological clock is almost run out. These are women who have the financial resources, have the social network, have the success, but they don't have the husband and they don't have a lot of time. What I don't see are guys crying on the internet about not being able to find a wife. Not in the same way. There are guys who sure will complain about there not being wives, or the women who they would expect to pursue as wives not being accessible. But you don't see guys saying, I never found a woman to have a kid despite the fact that I wanted to and I had the means to. If you don't have the means, that's one thing. But when you do have the means, those rich, successful men have never been on the internet complaining about not being able to find wives. Gisele Bündchen and Tom Brady get a divorce. Gisele very quickly gets out in social media to show off that she's got a new boyfriend. Tom Brady just plays it easy. Women are flooding his inbox. It becomes a public spectacle. The things that women are doing to try to let Tom Brady know that they are interested and ready to replace Gisele. She's advertising that she got something. He's just sitting back and keeping his business private. It's not the same, the successful women, the successful men who say that they are looking for a spouse. Because generally, the hyper-successful men are going to find one. So you have to kind of ask the question, if you've got these women who are hyper-successful and unmarried, what's going on? Why is it that a 35-year-old corporate exec making six figures with a master's degree is losing out to a 22-year-old Filipina who was raised on a farm? What is it that guys are finding in the farm girl that they're not finding in the business exec? That's fundamentally the idea. Because when I'm talking about wives, I'm not talking about people who just want to get married. So I'm differentiating here. If you're just looking to get married, that does not necessarily mean your wife. Maybe you want financial security. Maybe you just want kids. Question is, do you want to be a wife? And let's be fair, there are a lot of guys out here who are saying they want to get married. They don't necessarily want to be married. They don't want to be husbands. They want some of the benefits that are associated with marriage. But when you look at the full product, when you think about the accountability that also comes with that, the responsibility that comes with that, the need to compromise that comes with that, that's where the problems start to come in. I want a wife as long as she's on my program. I want a husband as long as he's on my program. But the second I don't get everything that I want, I have a problem. And let's face it, nobody is going to get everything they want out of a marriage. It is a negotiation, which by definition means that both parties are going to lose at least a little bit. So, in a situation where guys have to lose a little something, What we're finding is that guys are saying, you know what? I can go to the Philippines and I don't lose that much, at least not compared to what I am losing in the West. Parabiology is back. We want, whoops. Okay, hang on one second. We want them fit, feminine, and friendly. You are absolutely right. But let me share a little something. Because I want you to see an idea. And we're going to go to a different slide for a second. Okay, I'm not sure what just happened to my video. Let me see if I can pull it back up. Oh, maybe not. You know what? I am going to try to just overlay it onto this screen. And we'll see if this works. I think we got it. I think that works. It's kind of a quick fix. I'll have to figure out the video a little bit later. Yeah. All right. So you may have seen this image before. If you haven't, well, okay, this is an introduction to a pretty famous piece. I don't have the full history on it, but the moral of the story is that when you look at this image, there are two things in this image. It's kind of an optical illusion. You might look at it and you might see an old woman. You might look at it and you might see a young woman. There's really no right or wrong answer, but it is kind of curious to understand which idea do you see first. For those out there who might look at this and this is their first time seeing it, and they're struggling to see one of those images, basically to see the older woman, these are her eyes, that's her nose, that's her mouth. She's kind of wearing a shawl with a little feather on it, looking out to the side. If you're looking for the younger woman, well, this is her eye, this is her jawline, and this is her ear. She's wearing sort of a necklace, and she's looking off into the distance, still wearing the shawl, still has a feather in her cap. Old ways, new ways. Two different ways of looking at this. You can stay in the West, and you can keep hunting for a woman who fits what you're looking for, especially when you consider what you're being asked to give up. Or you can look for someone who matches exactly what you're looking for. Now, let me tell you, I've been to the Philippines. I've seen it with my own two eyes, and it is different over there. I try my best to help people understand that if you get to the Philippines, you won't have the questions that you might have right now. But it can be hard to understand. It's kind of like chocolate. I don't actually know anybody who doesn't like chocolate. I know some people who are allergic to chocolate, but I don't know anyone who dislikes it. Basically, you either like chocolate or you haven't tried chocolate. That's, maybe there's like a percent of people out there who say they don't like it, and I would kind of question them. But fundamentally, once you've tried it, you understand what it is, and your whole world perspective has changed. It's kind of a funny thing. You look at a video of like a little kid trying chocolate for the first time. You don't get an image of a kid who's just saying, wow, this is great. No, it's like there's like a confusion on their face where they look and they say, what the heck is this? Like, hey, I didn't know this existed before. I've been settling for some stuff that I thought was good because I had never gotten exposed to this chocolate here. Guess what? You can give me all this other candy all you want, but now that I've tried chocolate, this is what's the top of the chart. This is what I'm expecting. If you want to reward me for something, you reward me with this. Now, I don't have to fly to Switzerland to get the very best chocolate on the planet. I can just go to my, grocery store. If I really want to get fancy, I can go to the candy store in town. pick up some pretty good chocolate, but that chocolate's not going to be the best chocolate in the world. If I want the best chocolate in the world, I got to go to like Switzerland or Belgium, someplace that's recognized as having the best on the planet. And that's just chocolate. We're talking about a wife. Are you going to get a wife who's just okay when you can get a wife who's one of the best in the world? Maybe you think I'm overselling the Philippines, maybe not. We'll talk about it. But we start to get into the question of what do you want in a wife? Now, for some, you might look and say, you know what? This guy's preaching doom and gloom. If there are no wives out here, if it's really that difficult, well, then what's the point? If you want a wife, like, why not just throw your hands up and quit? But this is not a story of doom and gloom at all. It's quite the opposite. This is a story about golden horizons, because there is a place where there are wives all over the streets, all over the malls, all over the shops. All you've got to do is get there and pick the one you want. You need to know what you want, which is a new kind of dilemma. But this is kind of the warning for you. The Philippines can be hazardous to your health as a bachelor. You get to the Philippines and you might find yourself losing interest in dating around, losing interest in playing the field. Side effects of being in the Philippines for a month could include having a fiance and a kid on the way. It is a different world over there. And kind of like chocolate to someone who's never tried it, it can be hard to understand how different the Philippines is. I did a podcast with another guy. His name is DL Saint. He runs a really interesting channel called I Really Want to Know. He covers a wide range of topics. DL Saint has spent his time dating women in the West, and he sometimes travels to the DR. He really enjoys his time there. He couldn't get his head around the idea of women not wanting to cheat you out of your money. It was a foreign concept to him that a woman would be loyal. He never fathomed in his wildest dreams that could happen. During our conversation about the Philippines, he kept probing to try to understand how the Philippines will trick you, how they'll try to steal your money, how they'll try to come to the States and then dump you and take half of what you've built. And I explained something to him that was a new concept to him, but it did help him to get a little bit closer to the view that I have. And he and I have talked since, and he's thinking about making a trip to the Philippines. So I feel like it was a success. What I was explaining to him was that you're looking at a culture where the dirty deal for some women is to marry a guy who's old, because they'll take care of him until he passes, and they will be a great wife to him until he passes. They'll hope that he leaves them some inheritance, and then they'll go on with phase 2 of their life. But to that guy, he gets a wife who's loyal and loving for his golden years. So in a situation where you're saying, you know what, I want someone who's going to be devoted to me, who's going to care about me, who's going to enjoy everything that I do for her, well, he's getting what he wants. That was a foreign concept to him. The notion of loyalty doesn't even cross his mind when he's thinking about women. That's what the West is doing to people. It's twisting the narrative so that guys don't even understand that they can find loyalty anymore. And what's funny is that when you look at social media content, compare the content in the West to the content in the Philippines. Because here's what you find in the West when people are talking about relationships. It's basically two sides talking about this long list of things that they want and that they're not getting. Women have a list of expectations that they want in a man and they're not finding it. Men have a list of expectations for women. They want these things and they're not finding it. That's fundamentally what the Western conversation about relationships is. But take a look at what's going on in the Philippines. Look at the women's and the men's podcasts that are coming out of the Philippines, and that conversation is very different. The women in the Philippines are basically advertising the young, beautiful women who are looking for husbands. You go to the Philippines, and they're saying, here's an 18-year-old, here's a 22-year-old, here's a 28-year-old. They want to be wives. It's fascinating to me that even as early as 18, 19, women in the Philippines are talking about wanting to be wives, not wanting to be out in the streets, not wanting to date around, not wanting to have their fun girl phase. No, that's not their culture. They want husbands. They want to move on with their lives. They want to have kids. They want to have structure. They want to have the cover of some guy who they trust. When you look at the men's podcasts that are coming out of the Philippines, first thing to notice is that all of those guys either have wives or they've got significant others. They're not advertising about struggling in the field to find a good woman. If anything, they're talking about how their problem was choice. Their problem was, which of these women do I want to choose? Because I've got lots of great options. And that's kind of the difference between having riches and having scraps. When you've got scraps, you've got something, but you're taking what you get and you really can't do anything with it. The problem when you've got riches, it's an entirely different problem. It's the problem of choice. Anytime you hear a woman say she's a 10, it's very easy to figure out whether she really is a 10 or not. If she has an army of the men she wants, and she has to figure out which one of those men she's going to choose, okay, she's a 10. Her problem is choice. If she's saying she's a 10, but she doesn't have any of the men she wants pursuing her, she's not a 10. She's overestimating her value. Now, I bring that up because that's a women's issue, not a men's issue. I don't hear men in droves running around calling ourselves 10s. We generally have to be pretty realistic about how we rate, and we've got to operate accordingly. If you're a guy who's a 5, you've got to move like a 5. Maybe that means you're in the gym, upgrading, working on your career and trying to build your money. But fundamentally, right now I'm a 5 and I have to decide, am I going to become a 6 or a 7? Or am I going to be a 5 and accept a 5's results? We live in a culture that pretty much celebrates everything except the average man. And that's the reality of where we live. Look at the cover of beauty magazines today. Used to be pretty straightforward. You get a beautiful woman, she sells your product. But somewhere along the line, we decided that that's not who we want to be. At least that's what the magazines have decided, that that's not who they want to be. Suddenly you had older women. Suddenly you had women who were bigger. Suddenly you had trans women. You had all sorts of things on screen being advertised as beautiful. But the one thing you don't have in this age of acceptance, when they're talking about what's beautiful, is an average Joe. You're not allowed to think you're beautiful when you're an average Joe. Not here. So what do you have to do? You either have to become an above average Joe, or you've got to go someplace where they don't think that way. And yep, let me tell you, when you're in the Philippines, that is exactly how they think. So it forces you to say, what's in the water over there? Why is it so different over there? Well, it's not so much that it's wildly different. It's just that you show up differently. Women around the world seem to basically be the same. They want tall, handsome, successful men. Guess what? If you go to the Philippines, you become a tall, handsome, successful man. They are shorter on average than us. Height, check the box. You're exotic over there. So when it comes to attractiveness, you check that box too. The thing that guys don't fully understand is that you also check the box for success. Average income in the Philippines is somewhere between 6 and 10,000 US dollars a year. Depends on the site you go to. Doesn't really matter. That's all in the same ballpark as far as the US is concerned. If you're above the poverty line in the US, well, guess what? You're rich, rich in the Philippines. Okay, got to take one real quick commercial break. So, any sound on it? So, apologies for that. I'm kind of getting up to speed, still learning how to make all of this stuff work. So, um, let me just get back to what we were talking about. Now, if you think about what's going on in the Philippines, if you think about what's not going on in the States, the question is, why are guys going to the Philippines and coming back with wives? Why are guys going to the Philippines and in 1 month making more progress towards building something than we're seeing people make in years in the States? I mean, remember, in the States, it's taken more than 2 years from the time you meet someone until the time you get engaged, on average. You can debate whether that's 3, 4, 5, doesn't matter. It's 2+. But you've got guys who are in the Philippines, and in a month, they've found a wife. You've got guys who are traveling to the Philippines because they feel like they've already found a wife, and they just want to go confirm that this woman really is who she says she is. What is it that guys are finding over there that they aren't finding over here? Well, it's the same reason why in the States women are getting coffee dates and in the Philippines are getting wedding rings. It's appreciation. The thing that guys are getting over there, the thing that makes a trip halfway around the world for several $1,000s to bring someone back several months later, several $1,000s more. The thing that's motivating these guys to do all of that is they've found appreciation. Guys don't mind being providers. Guys don't mind finding a woman and taking care of her, paying most of the bills. But what guys do mind is being treated like they owe everything that they're giving, especially when they're giving a whole lot more to the relationship than their spouse is. I got to the Philippines, and I got to tell you something. I think, if you follow my content, then I was over there. There was a woman named Lynn. She and I were, we had been talking for a long time online, and we finally met. Right off the bat, Lynn's comments to me were all about what she could do to help me appreciate and enjoy my trip in the Philippines. I traveled halfway around the world to see her country. She did not want me to leave with a bad impression. She wanted to show me her cooking. She wanted to show me her culture. She had ideas for how to make the trips that I had planned more efficient. Giving, giving, giving. When I landed there, I was overwhelmed by the sense of appreciation. Not only does she appreciate the trip that I just made, the day that I've spent in transit so that I can get here, but no, she appreciates it. I'm here to have a good time. I want to enjoy it. And she's got an all expenses paid vacation. All she has to do is be fun. She wants to make sure that she over delivers on her part of the equation. That's what starts to throw you off. You're dating women who appreciate the situation that you're providing for them. Let me kind of play two different scenarios out for perspective. When I was in the Philippines, I felt like Not quite like I was Leonardo DiCaprio, but you know, I've said before, I was a lot closer to being Leonardo DiCaprio than I was to just being regular old me. Um, I was with Lynn and we went to a shoe store, Foot Locker in Ayala Mall in Cebu. One of the things I did was I didn't bring any sandals. I figured I'll just buy some when I'm in the Philippines. I knew I wanted to go to Ayala Mall, and I thought, I'll go here. This gives me a reason to go to the mall, so I'm not just walking around. The most beautiful woman I saw in the Philippines while I was there, in my estimation, just given the way I judge, was working at Foot Locker in Ayala Mall. She was She was stunning. Oh my gosh! I mean, your jaws will drop. Look at her and you think, oh, wow. I bring her home and I'm going to be fighting guys off with a stick every single day, unless she's pregnant and having my kids, because then she's more invested. She's probably invested enough that I don't have to worry about that. But just bringing her over here single, no. Every day they're going to be after her because she's amazing. Let's be picky and say she's only a 9, just because somebody will always argue that there's something wrong. But okay, let's say she's a 9. I'm in this shoe store with Lynn and talking to her about shoes, sandals and sizes in particular. And she makes this joke about my big old feet. I got size 13s. You're not going to find a size 13 in the Philippines. You're going to struggle to find a size 12. It wasn't the joke so much as it was the tone of the joke, because the tone was inviting. Kind of caught me off guard. It was more than kind of sales banter. She hadn't made a sale yet. She wasn't really trying to earn a tip because I hadn't even committed to shoes. It wasn't a hardcore flirt. She didn't toss the hair or anything, but she opened this door. And you recognize in just interpersonal dynamics, when someone is kind of telling you that they're interested and they're just testing the waters. I think that the only reason she wasn't more obvious was because I was with Lynn. But she was kind of putting up a flag to say, hey, you're a foreigner. And I like foreigners. And if you like me, well, I'm letting you know that we can explore this. Had I not been with Lynn, yeah, I would have explored that without a doubt. But that's the power of having a good woman. From a personality, from an interpersonal, just from a demeanor standpoint, I don't really have any criticisms of Lynn. The only problem that we had was she's very tied to the Philippines, very tied to her family, and it takes a really long time to get someone from the Philippines to the States. So, because it was not easy to bring her to the States, we couldn't do it quickly. And she didn't really want to come because she didn't want to leave her family. Things just kind of phased out. Not my inability to find a good woman. It's just the red tape around trying to build a connection. I'm also not the kind of guy who's going to do a 90-day fiance, because for me, there are questions you've got to ask. Namely, someone who's never left she's left the Philippines. Someone who's spent almost their whole life in the Philippines suddenly comes to America. Do they even like it here? Having them try to make a decision about rearranging their whole life in 90 days, to me, it's just, that's not good math. However, I will say that when you look at the divorce rates, guys are more successful bringing Filipinas over on 90-day fiance visas than they are marrying Western women. So pick your poison. Yeah. All of that said, I cannot say enough about what's waiting for you in the Philippines. And again, it's like the kid who tries chocolate for the first time. Until you taste it, you don't fully understand it. But once you taste it, you'll never forget it. And your taste buds, your expectations are forever rearranged. Now, if you've been following my channel, then you'll notice that I dropped some videos, some shorts from a guy named Steve. Steve's online handle is Dano, the Junkyard Dog. Steve is considering a trip to the Philippines. Now, Steve is, he's not that much older than me, but there's a generational difference. Steve is kind of old. He's old-fashioned. Steve likes to make a formal introduction to a woman. He wants her to know his intentions. The whole notion of just kind of going back and forth and situationships and all of that, that's a foreign concept to Steve. Steve married young, age ago, stayed with his wife until she passed away. He lived the vows until death do us part. Steve is that good old-fashioned, salt of the earth soul that you can appreciate and that you wish you saw more of. Now, why did I do the story with Steve? Well, simple. I want to show what passport bros really look like. When you see the streams, if you look at YouTube, TikTok, the passport bros look one way. Young, adventurous, all these guys, there are passport bros like that, sure. But when I was in the Philippines, that's not what passport bros look like. The youngest expat I saw in the Philippines was like 35. There was only one of them. Passport bros were guys who were 40 plus, single, looked like they were all pretty successful, enterprising men who went to the Philippines and had a beautiful young Filipino on their arms. Almost to a man, passport bros had a beautiful Filipino on their arm. The only person I saw who didn't was a guy who I don't think wanted a relationship. When I look at the bar he was going to, and when I look at the way he was approaching women, it kind of suggested he was just looking to have some fun, which I get. But I've said this before. If you're going to the Philippines to have fun, that's a very long flight to make for, a weekend hookup, or a week of hookups. And you're also kind of going to a gourmet restaurant and asking for a Big Mac. Unless you go to Angeles. If you go to Cebu, Manila, Siquijor, something like that, you're kind of shopping in the wrong place. I mean, yeah, you go to a gourmet place, you tell them you want a Big Mac. They might kind of make something for you, but that's clearly not what they do. And the only guys I've seen who weren't happy in the Philippines were guys who went to like Cebu or Manila because they just wanted hookups. If you go in there and that's what you want, go to Angeles. I think you'll be more than satisfied with that. But Cebu, that's for guys who want relationships. So if you're looking for the relationship, yeah, go to Cebu. You'll find it. You'll find options. And your hardest choice is going to be which of these is the best for me, because they all feel really good. So I wanted Steve's story to come out because I wanted people to see what Steve looks like. Steve's a passport bro. He's on the verge of becoming a passport bro. He just needs to set up a date and a time with this Filipina that he's met so he can actually get over there and see her. And what did Steve talk about when he was in the West? Steve talked about using dating apps. He's a 62-year-old man. Steve got married young. He's been out of the dating market for decades. This whole new thing and, swiping left and swiping right, and maybe I talk to you and maybe I don't. And when I go out on a date with you, you seem to kind of be angry at me, but I don't know why. This is all a foreign concept to him. He's a loyal guy who just wants a good relationship. He can't find that here. What he finds here is just a heap of mess. And this is a guy who, wants to make his intentions plain, wants to be loyal, wants to be devoted, wants to be loved. You can't find that here when you're Steve. But he's got that in the Philippines. Steve's got his passport. Steve is just trying to figure out when he can get over there so that he can meet some woman's parents and let them know that he means business. Now, there are some challenges in all of that, and I won't get into all of that right now. The idea behind Steve, though, is Steve's willing to fly halfway around the world to get a wife because he's not finding a wife in the West. That's how big appreciation is. Having someone who appreciates what you're doing for them, as opposed to simply feeling like they deserve it and you need to step it up. That's huge. I didn't finish part of the earlier story. So on the one hand, I was talking about the appreciation you feel in Southeast Asia. Let's contrast that with what you see in the West. This is a true story. I go to coffee shops usually in the morning. It's kind of my rut buster. I can very easily wake up. I work from home. I won't feel like getting to work right off the bat. It's very easy to kind of put on some ESPN or some Netflix and drink some coffee, and I can lose an hour or two if I just sit there. I get to the coffee shop, I can get going, get to work. I make pretty good money. I won't get into how much I make, but I'm in the six-figure club, fine, all that stuff. At my coffee shop, basically most of the people who are working behind the counter are young women. And there's this one woman. I don't know if she's Filipino or not. She's got a nice body, but I didn't really pay attention to her. I go to the coffee shop. I want to get my coffee and my muffin and go to work. I'm not there trying to flirt. I'm not there really trying to introduce myself to people. I'll make casual conversation. That's it. She kind of understands just because I'm talking to this Russian cashier because I wanted to learn some Russian. I was just like, tell me something. How do I say good morning in Russian? Dobra utro, by the way. It's like, okay. So this Asian woman starts putting it together. This guy seems to kind of be sharp. This guy orders expensive stuff. I think this guy has money. I'm interested in that. And what does she do? She starts acting rude. Just out of the blue, I'm talking to the Russian and she's kind of being rude about stuff. And I thought, what are you doing? Why are you talking to me? And with that tone, why are you in my space at all? Because I don't need you to make my order. I don't want you around if you can't be friendly. Over my visits to the coffee shop, she's not there anymore. Don't know why, I don't care. But I noticed if I was there and she was behind the counter, she'd make a point of kind of being rude. Now, I'm assuming that in her mind, since she's interested in me, I must be interested in her. And since she's cute, well, I'm going to have to work to win her favor. So she's letting me know how hard it's going to be. I think that's what's going on in her mind. But in my mind, I was like, I don't need you. And I don't tolerate rude. If you've got broken behaviors, I'm assuming you're a broken person, and I don't want any part of that. If you don't know how to be pleasant, if you don't know how to present yourself as being agreeable, as being someone who I would want to have around, and the only thing you can sell yourself on is your physique, kick rocks. I don't need a 10 body. I have seen a 6 body is just fine by me. Lack of appreciation. We hadn't even started to do we hadn't even started any sort of social engagement. Hadn't done anything to try to build a relationship, to communicate attraction. She couldn't get past hello without making sure that I knew that she wasn't going to appreciate anything except a whole lot of effort for, as far as I could tell, very, very little reward. That's just not worth it to me. It's also very easy now to do the math. If a woman wants several expensive dates, $200 dates, $300 dates. I've heard people talk about $500 dates. I wouldn't do any of that. And I would very quickly start to do the math. I can get a round trip ticket to the Philippines and spend a week there. And if I get good flight deals, I could do it for $2,000. Now, versus the kind of vacations I normally take, that would be kind of a low budget vacation. But versus what the Filipinos expect, that could be vacation of a lifetime. Take your Get a Filipina, take her to Jollibee's. She's gonna be ecstatic. They love Jollibee. She's gonna get some spaghetti. It's a chicken place, but she's gonna get the spaghetti. That's just what they do. She's gonna get French fries and banana ketchup. She's gonna be in heaven. Take her to Sugbo Mercado. Spend $10. You're gonna get a meal. She's gonna get a meal. You're gonna get a beer. You're gonna listen to live music. She's gonna be ecstatic. You can do that every single night. You're living like a prince, and you're spending less than, let's say, actually, let's throw everything in there. So let's say you got your room, you've got your transportation, you're doing your grabs. I'm going to call the room $25. I'm going to call your grabs. I'm going to call your grabs $20. I'm going to go high on everything. So now you're up to $45. You got your food, 10, $55. Okay. You're spending, let's call it 60. Heck, let's call it 70. You're spending $70 a day for 14 days. That's not even $1,000. You get a flight. I've seen flight deals that are around $800 if you can time it right. You're spending $1,700 for 2 weeks in Cebu with a woman who's beautiful and treats you better than anyone in the States has or probably will ever treat you, because culturally they are oriented differently. Over there is chocolate, and over here you kind of got candy. The experience is not the same at all. That's what's available if you can make the trip. People will talk about not making the trip, and I can't, I can't explain to someone why they need to make the trip. At the end of the day, that's an internal question. And it really boils down to whether or not you really have a desire to get out of the rut or not. See, I do believe in this whole adage, listen to what people say, but watch what they do, because what you do matters a lot more than what you say. When people say they want spouses, when I hear 40-year-old successful women complain that they want a husband and they can't find one, I never believe them. If you wanted a husband and you looked, you could find one. There are husbands all over the place. When I hear guys say that they want a girlfriend and they can't find one, I don't believe them either. You want a girlfriend who's hotter than the ones who are available to you, but you could get one if you wanted. The question is, if you really want this thing you say, you want a hot, young, agreeable woman, fit, feminine, friendly, well, you can get that. You can literally fly to the Philippines and you can get that. So the question is, why aren't you doing it if you're not? I've heard different people say different things. The expense, that's real. You've got to be able to save up the money. Yeah. Cheapest you're going to be able to do that right is probably $2,000. So if you can't pull the $2,000 together, you need to figure that part out. But how much is it worth for you to get a wife? If I told you that for $2,000, I can get you a wife who's going to blow your mind, is that worth it? How much is a wife worth to you? I've heard people talk about not wanting to make the trip because it's long. That doesn't make any sense to me. I've taken road trips. It's 24 hours. Okay, 24 hours in, 24 hours back. I've taken road trips. I've driven from California to Texas, from Texas to New York, from Atlanta to Minnesota. I've taken road trips that have taken more than 24 hours. This is a 24-hour flight. And let's face it, I wasn't going to some Shangri-La for vacation. I was just traveling for work. This is a much better experience than that. So when the guys are saying that, it's the hours of the trip, I kind of question whether they really want the relationship or not. If you're just looking for fun, that's different. I would not recommend Cebu if you're looking for fun. I think you can go there and you can be disappointed. Um, Parabiology's back. Yeah, they absolutely should go to the Philippines. Yes. Parabiology. I don't know if you've been to the Philippines. I'm curious to know if you've been, because that's what we are encouraging. One of the things that I was curious about, there's a guy who, what have we got here? Direct flight from California is only about 16 hours there and 12 back. Nice. You're on the West Coast. I'm on the East Coast. I don't get that advantage. I got those extra few hours because I got to make a layover in Tokyo. At least that's what I had to do when I was heading in. Oh man, he's been to okay. So you got more experience in the Philippines than I have. Tell you what, you've been to more islands. I've been to 2 islands. So you've been to more islands than I have now. Give me 2 years because I'm going to be going back. The Philippines is at least once a year going to be one of my trips. Although I will be spending more time thinking about how to get to the Philippines, how to spend time there. I don't generally want to go if I can't do at least 2 weeks, but I have to admit, looking at this Thanksgiving break, I kind of thought, with the week of Thanksgiving and bookending those weekends, that was like 9 days. I could have just taken one more day of vacation, made it 10. I could have done a Philippines trip in that. And I did kind of think back on it and think that wouldn't have been a bad time to go to the Philippines. So at least I will at least go. Well, I can see myself going twice, July and November 2024. But I don't really want to wait until July if I don't have to. So I got to figure all of that out. Yeah, okay. Luzon, Mindoro, Cebu, Boracay, and Palawan. Okay, so you haven't been to Manila yet. We got to find some Manila guys. But kind of to the idea I was saying, guys talk about wanting something, but they don't put any effort into it. As an aside, there's a guy who I wasn't sure. I was hoping he was going to join on the show tonight because I was looking forward to the conversation. There's a streamer. Oh, Manila. Okay, Manila's on Luzon. So you got the lingo. See, I don't think of Luzon as. I know they've got their barangays. I think of Luzon. I don't think of Luzon as sort of a country encapsulating a lot of the barangays. I just think of Manila. But okay, that makes sense. But yeah, there's a guy. He runs a stream and he calls himself the Depressed Unwanted Man. Now, I don't think he's serious. I think that's just his marketing because he talks a lot about how horrible his dating situation is in the States. But, I talked to him. I was on his stream once. That's a lot of what I do is I look for guys who seem to be primed to benefit from a trip to the Philippines, and I try to help them see the light. In his show, he was talking about the dating options that he had. He's just a regular guy. He's not fit. He doesn't say he is. He seems to be a good guy, and it's hard to tell how much of his show is an act and how much of it's real. I do think there's an element of it that is real, that he does want to find a real relationship and he can't find one. But I think he overblows kind of how difficult it is. He and I started chatting kind of in the comment section of one of his videos because I basically made the challenge to him. I said, if you really believe that it's this difficult and you are really this committed to having a relationship, you've got a Filipino from the outskirts of Manila. Yeah, the comment. Okay, so I'll come back to that. So what I was saying to this guy was, why haven't you gone to the Philippines? Because if what you really want is a relationship, and if the kind of woman you want is what you're describing, you can find a million women like that in the Philippines. In his show, during his live stream, he saw my comments and he kind of said, yeah, I need to go to the Philippines so I can shut these guys up about the Philippines being the right place for me. He's kind of poo-pooing the idea a bit, but he was also acknowledging that he hadn't been. And I wanted to see if he was going to go. Now, in the chat, he's talked about it, but he's never gone. And it was very interesting. Today, I did a video where I advertised that, hey, I'm going to be running my live stream tonight. So I let everyone know ahead of time, live stream is happening. You want to come in, you want to have a chat, we can. Haven't talked to the guy in like 3 months, but he dropped into my comments today and asked about the channel and how it's going. I don't think it's a coincidence that he drops in after I drop that ad about the show. So I told him, hey, come on the show. I'm happy to talk to you about the Philippines. I want to answer any question you've got about it so that you can decide whether you really want to get over there, you really want to find a relationship, or you just want to sit here and pretend. What I did like was that he reached out. That suggests that there's some sincerity to him. I don't think it's just a show. He wants to find someone. But he didn't sign up. So to the depressed unwanted man, if you watch this later, get into the comments. Let's have that conversation. Oh, let me see. Parabiology, you sent me an email November 13th with pictures of you and your... Okay, hang on. Which of my email addresses did you send that to? Because now I'm curious. I've got some stuff. I've got a couple of people who I'm talking to. I'm starting to build a net. It's kind of interesting. I'm starting to build this network now that I'm realizing it, where people are sending me pictures so that I can kind of keep track of what's going on with them. Okay. Thank you. That tells me exactly which email address. I just want to go. I guess let me ask you before I pull it up. Do you mind if I pull the pictures up and share them online? Because I won't share them if you don't want me to. But I'm curious. Because if not, I'll just look at them myself. But I like guys to see what's going on in the Philippines. I mean, the thing that I would do differently, I didn't do this when I was in the Philippines, but I wasn't thinking about it, but I see the value now. If I go back to the Philippines, one of the things that I'm going to film, let me see, November 13th. I'm looking at my November 13th. Let me see. Is this it? Nope, not that. Well, I'm looking for that. One of the things I want to film is the guys in the Philippines and their Filipinas. I didn't film that. I filmed footage of my adventure vacation. I was running around. You know, I'm looking for this email on the 13th and I'm not seeing it. Now, I will admit my emails at that address, stuff gets weird. Some things go into spam. I don't know why, because they're not spam. Some things have gotten kicked into junk. Again, don't know why. They're clearly not junk. But regular emails do not always come to my inbox. Sometimes they go to boxes that I don't look at. So I'm just going to take a peek over there. Okay. Yeah, let me go check out. Let's see. What have I got? Just taking a look around. Yeah, I'm not seeing it. I am not seeing it, my man. So I'm not sure what happened with it. I do try. Yeah. Okay. So if you sent it and I didn't respond to it, then that's why. I do. If people send me things, I always try to respond because I appreciate the engagement. I really want to help people become passport bros. some are out here just talking. You look at what they say, you look at how they live their life, and you're like, I don't think these guys are for real. No, I want to help guys get to the Philippines. I want to help guys understand the Philippines. One of the things that really made me feel great about, let me put I just did the name without the numbers. I was figuring that should work, but let me put the 101 and see if that gets me anything. No, I'm not getting anything here. You know what? Let me just try to sort on attachments. Let me see what that does. Yep, I want attachments only. And now if I go through here, what am I seeing? I've got it's not popping. I don't know what happened. Oh no, I'm not. I don't doubt that it was sent at all. But I've got for perspective, I have a financial email where I was asking for a password reset because I forgot my password to log into this thing. And the password reset got sent to my junk box. Now this is a financial email, so that's one of the last things I would expect to see not come to my inbox. But that kind of stuff happens, and I'm not technological enough to know why things. I'm looking right now at things that went to my trash that are not trash. I don't know what goes on with that. I wish I did because yeah, I would love to. I don't know what happened there. Okay, so if you get a chance and you want to resend, let me know. I will. Let me see. You know what? That one's public, so I'll just. You can still send to this one. It's hopefully I don't get any trolls trying to blast me, but I have like 4 email addresses. That's the one that I get all kinds of, that's my public one. So if you get that one, it's like, okay, there's no real filter there. Anything spam. That's probably why I get my emails bouncing all over the place, is because that's the one that's got the least filters. Like I've got a Gmail, I've got 2 different work emails. Those nobody gets those because I have to keep those focused. But yeah, my Yahoo is like, okay, I've had that account for forever, and I don't even try to keep a filter on it anymore because it's got so much junk email coming through that trying to filter it would probably take me 2 days just to set up all the filters, and who knows. Oh yeah, so it's the same one. I'm just throwing out. I don't want to put my Gmail on this because I've got a couple of, in the short time that I've been streaming, I have a couple of trolls. It's kind of funny. If I do a video, this is just total aside. I've noticed this. There are like 1 or 2 people who will instantly go to my videos and click dislike on them. I don't think that you'll see it if you're just watching the videos, because I think that with the YouTube setup, you just see likes. But I get to see my dislikes. And it's always 2 people. I mean, I've launched videos, and within 2 minutes, they're clicking dislike, which means they've got me on notify, and they are specifically going in to dislike the videos. So I am a little more careful. I mean, if you have an email address that you don't mind sharing, I can send you an email with an alternate address to send stuff to. But yeah, I am a little suspicious of what those trolls would do, because I think I know who one of them is. I mean, truth be told, oh yeah, I did. If you know who the sprinkle lady is, I went on her show. I was in the comment section because I wanted to see what it was about. And I just made a couple of very factual comments to the women who were in there, since what they were saying didn't make sense. Her show was basically about how women should try to swindle successful men. And I thought, well, you make it sound like there are successful men all over the place and you can afford to treat a man poorly and just pick another one off the tree. But if there are 10 women to every successful man, well, he's got no reason to put up with this behavior from you. If a guy who's doing well is looking for a woman and he has one woman who treats him badly and one woman who treats him well, he's going to pick the one who treats him well. And that just, they didn't want to believe that. They wanted to kind of go down these weird rabbit holes of how men like women to be mean to them. And I thought, no. Fit, feminine, friendly is a real thing. If you can't be fit, feminine, friendly, he'll just move on to the next woman. There's no reason to tolerate you. And ever since then, that was when I got my first troll. I thought, I don't know who it is, but someone from that chat didn't like what I said and has been on a mission to dislike my videos ever since then. The other one, I'm not sure. People drop weird comments. I mean, you talk about passport bros, and some women really get offended, which boggles my mind because for the most part, I don't really bash women on my channel. I just don't bother. My attitude is, if you want to chase a Giga Chad, if you want to chase a man who's like 1 in 50,000, that's fine. I hope you understand that he's like 1 in 50,000. And there's a very good chance that you won't get him unless you are a 1 in 50,000 woman, which usually they're not. Well, actually, every single time they're not. I haven't seen a single woman who's so beautiful that she's like 1 in 50,000. But if you look at the stats on what they want, with the height and the income and the willingness to get married to a woman who's older and already has a kid and is overweight, it's like, what are you like? This doesn't make sense. This does not make sense. And I say this working with these men, living in a community of these men, like, no, what you're asking for, a guy who's going to settle for you when you don't want to settle, just doesn't exist. But I try not to bash them. I just, my attitude is I'm talking to the guys, fellas. If you want to find a great relationship, go to the Philippines. I mean, what I tried to help Steve understand, because Steve is in this weird dilemma where he's got his heart set on this one woman who he's already met online. And he doesn't want anybody else. He wants her. And what I'm trying to explain to him was, well, Steve, number one, you haven't met her yet. So there's a chance that she's not real. So you're holding out hope for some woman who, might not be real or might not look like, in reality, what she looked like online. But, Steve, he's old school. Cupid hit him and he's got his mind set on this one woman. What I wanted him to understand was if he just gets to the Philippines, okay, appreciate that. Give me like a minute to let it transit over, and then I'll double check the box because I do want to see this. So part of what I was trying to help Steve understand was you don't have to set your heart on just this one woman. Get to the Philippines. You're going to find tons of women who look just like her. But I kind of get it because Steve is coming from his wife passed. He went through COVID. Yeah. You're Filipino. All right. Now tell me this, parabiology, because you're making a comment about your wife being very beautiful. Your Filipino being very beautiful. Freudian. If you asked her to rate herself on a 10-point scale, what do you think she would rate herself? This is one of those little hidden benefits of the Philippines. And while I ask that, I'm going to go check. Ah, okay. This one came through. Oh, man. Okay, okay. Now let me just double check. Did you say you do or do not mind me sharing those pictures on my stream? You don't know how she'll rate herself. Okay, that's fair. Here's the thing that's funny to me. I've seen several guys who are married to Filipinas or in serious relationships with Filipinas, and they've asked these Filipinas to rate themselves. These are beautiful women, and when you look at them, these women are saying that they are fives, fours. That's what I'm talking about. We got to pull these up. Yeah, we got to pull these up because this is what people need to understand about the Philippines. All right, hang on one second. I need guys to understand there are beautiful women in the Philippines, and they got great attitudes. Yep, this is exactly okay. We're going to do it like this. So, courtesy of parabiology, let's take a look. Let us take a look. Oh, you were debating. Okay. See, I got excited here because this is the stuff I want to share. So